Ever pinch pennies all year for that one family vacation only to feel the budget blues afterwards? If so, I was just like you. After 3 vacationless years, I stumbled on credit card rewards travel and cracked the code to amazing vacations that I could actually afford.
Welcome to Wonderland on Points. In this podcast, you will discover how opening credit cards strategically can save you thousands on travel. We're not just dreamers anymore. We're 2 adventurous moms turning dreams into reality. Join us as we spill all the points and miles secrets.
And contrary to popular belief, you don't have to spend $1 million to earn 1,000,000 points. Traveling on credit card points isn't reserved for those with overflowing bank accounts. It's for everyday people like you and me, learning to turn routine expenses into free travel.
Consider us your points travel guides. This is Wonderland on Points. Let the adventure begin. Hello and welcome to Wonderland on Points from the top of a mountain in Switzerland. Kind of. Today we have a special guest on the show named Rob from Travel Points Rob. He is an expert with points and miles. He has figured this system out to a level that he has flown his entire family of 7 to Europe round trip from California in business class, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, it is. And it's a great story, how everything kind of worked out for that to happen. And this is not the time when you turn off the episode because you're like, I'll never be able to do this. We don't do the luxury thing. We're a budget family. I can tell that their family also is. They like to stretch their points. They're all about getting as much as they can and making them go the distance. But in this case, they had a goal, a really special goal for the family. And he had this surprise he wanted to do for the kids. And it all fell together and they went for it. And I think it's just a really cool example of what points and miles can do for a family. And it's, he drops a lot of other wisdom along the way. So it's a really, really good episode. We're excited for you to hear it.
I really enjoyed that Rob set a goal. Like he has had throughout his points and miles journey, very specific goals. Like first, the goal was Q Suites. I want to do that. That's business class, the top of the line business class. He wanted to do that. He made it happen. Then his next goal was I want to fly my whole family round trip, business class. Made it happen. It's fun for me to think about points and miles because I do this too. I like to have a goal in mind for the points when I'm signing up for a new credit card. And it's really cool that he's done that. But like you said, I also love that in this episode, we dig into Allegiant and Spirit Airlines and Breeze Airlines and flying these budget airlines because realistically, when you have a large family, especially, it's give and take, right? Maybe you do have the special business class experience once in 5 years or very rarely. But the reality is a lot of your travel is the more budget-friendly airlines.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's going to tell some pretty shocking flights that he got on the budget airlines for the whole family. I could not believe the totals that he was telling us for these round trip tickets on these budget airlines. So it makes me feel like I need to do a little more digging into some of those because I'm so into the points thing now. But cash prices like those, done. Easy.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, we're just going to let you guys get straight into it. And Mary Ellen is going to go back to her mountain in Switzerland at this very moment.
I'll see you guys on the other side. I hope you're watching my Instagram. I got a new action camera for this trip to Switzerland. And so I am so excited to be sharing all of this fun stuff with you guys. This was a trip that was a very long time in the making. And I know you think, when is Points and Miles going to take me to some far away, amazing place? And it absolutely can. It absolutely can. It doesn't happen overnight. I booked my flights to Switzerland a year ago, and we're going to have a whole episode digging into how we planned this trip. Every little detail I'm going to share, where we stayed, the activities we did, but none of it happened overnight. And so set a goal as you're listening to Rob this episode. think about what is the dream for you? Where do you want Points and Miles to take you? And there can be little goals and big goals, but set a goal and then let's work on getting you there.
Absolutely. And make sure if you have questions about all of these things, reach out to us. Reach out to our Facebook group. You can email us. You can DM on Instagram. We're here to help you because we love you and because we want to see you take these epic trips. We're very passionate about it. And now, here's the episode.
Joining us today, we have Rob Dolgarian. Did I get it?
You sure did. Nailed it.
Game of Thrones name, which I love.
Yeah, no, I've gotten that a few times, and I just wish Game of Thrones was around when I was a kid, so it would have been cool as a kid. Otherwise, it just felt odd, but whatever.
Oh, no, that's so sad. It is cool now. It gives you some status. Who doesn't want a Game of Thrones name these days?
So Rob is a Points and Miles educator. He has an Instagram account, Travel Points Rob, where he is helping other people learn how to navigate the world of points and miles to travel. And Rob, you kind of your fame grew. I'm going to call it fame because you...
Please tell my kids that, but go ahead, continue.
My kids keep asking me since we've had the podcast, has anybody recognized you? I'm like, no, they do not. And he thinks that that's when we're going to be famous, is if someone in the wild recognizes us from this podcast.
Absolutely.
We got a ways to go. But Rob, what brought you some internet fame in the Points and Miles world is you flew your family of 7.
Yeah.
I thought that my family was pretty big with 5. You flew a family of 7 in business class. We want to know all about that. We're going to dig into that a little bit. We want to know where you went, what airline, how in the world you found that much award availability. We just want to hear all about it.
Yeah,
yes, but definitely first dig into you a little bit. Tell us how you got here.
Yeah, so how it all started is, was it back in 2015 when Chase launched the Sapphire Reserve card? There was a lot of publicity and press about it because it was coming out with a 100,000 point offer. I wasn't really into Points and Miles at all. I had cashback cards, things like that, but when I heard about it, I just, saw it in the news and things, and I just thought, this seems pretty interesting. So I was talking to my brother about it, and we were both looking into it. And I kid you not, it took me probably 2 to 3 months to actually pull the trigger on applying for it, because I thought this can't be right. There's something, what everyone always says when they first dip their toe. Yeah, what's the catch? This can't be true. And he was like, no, Rob. So he was looking at it, and he said, so they give you 100,000 points, and you can cash out for $1,000. Like they'll just write you a check for $1,000. And I was like, no, like that seems too good to be true. Like, I pay, and at the time the annual fee was $450. It was $450. And I said, okay, wait, so I give them $450. They give me, $1,000. That just seemed odd. Right. And so I kept looking at it. In fact, they pulled the online offer and it was still in the branch for like 2 more weeks. And that's when I went in and finally applied for it and said, okay, I'm going to do it. And then I got my wife to jump on it, a week or 2 later, just because it was, of course, running out. And so we jumped on it. And that's kind of how we got started. And so when I was doing the research, I found, well, there's other ways you can use these points to get more money through travel out of it. And I just thought, well, what does that look like? So I got the points, hung on to them for, if I remember right, probably 6 months or so. Just trying to dig into it. And what it turned out to be is that we could go, like I was just looking at, you can transfer those to Southwest. Mm-hmm. And those points turned into be roughly, call it $1,500 worth of Southwest flights. And I thought, oh, well, I just got an extra $500 out of doing it this way.
Yeah.
And we flew our family, we went to DC for a week, and we just used the points to fly everyone out there. And that's how we did. And I just thought, wow, this is amazing.
Yes.
This really is as good as they say it is. And then it just kind of snowballed from there to figure out, what's the next card, or how does this work? What are, all the other stuff that you start to go down the rabbit hole with. And, and then fast forward 9 years later, that's where I'm at right now. So
that is amazing. I love that origin story. You were cutting it really close with those cards.
Oh, I waited until the last minute. Yeah, it was, yeah.
I mean, imagine if you hadn't done that and now knowing what you had missed out. That would have just been so painful.
Oh, I would have been, upset because even if I would have just gotten it and she did it or something like that, and I would have been kicking myself because, as we know, that 100,000 points has never come back for that card. And
Nope.
always FOMO, like, oh, I should have, could have, woulda. I'm going to wait until it comes up again. It never does, and then you maybe just never do it. I don't know.
Exactly.
But
That's
I finally
awesome.
pulled the trigger on that.
How did you end up taking it to the internet? What led you to the point where you ended up teaching other people?
So my wife, in her infinite wisdom, said I needed to get a hobby. And and so I was, people
Find
would ask me,
something to do, honey.
yeah, find something to do. I mean, like, work's work, right? It pays the bills and all that kind of stuff. But she's like, you need something. Well, and I don't golf. I don't do anything like that. She's like, and she's into social media and she had a blog and things like that. So she's like, well, why don't you just, start an Instagram account and just share some of the things that you learn and whatever. And so it just kind of started from there as just kind of a way to, I don't know, have a hobby and just kind of, because I never thought anyone would ever, first of all, listen to me, let alone follow me. So it's just, it just kind of started and it grew gradually over the course of what's been like 5 years now. So, it's been fun and it's been great doing it. I mean, yeah.
It's
Wives
awesome.
always know. They always
They are
give
brilliant.
the best advice.
They are never wrong.
I actually love on your Instagram, you do a lot of funny reels that are kind of jokes, but not, about how your wife taking one for the team by being the one to fly business class or the one person to go in the lounge or something like that.
Well,
so funny.
And the funny part about that dumb reel, the first one I did was that we were flying, we were headed to Africa, and it just so happened, and I just thought of it as we walk on the plane, filmed it, posted it right before we took off, and then the thing just went nuts. And I thought it was the dumbest idea. And it was totally untrue because I booked everything and I just said, hey, we got one leg, because, well, for those of you who are listening that didn't see the reel, we've had business class seats all the way to Tanzania. It was the first time we ever flew business class. It was amazing. But the leg from Phoenix to San Francisco, there was only one seat available for first class, which, it's domestic first. It's, of course, I'd much rather sit there than in the back. Fine. But she was so I just said, hey, you take it. It's a 2-hour flight. And she, of course, offered, no, you take it. It's fine. And I said, whatever. It's 2 hours, right? And so I just filmed it at her getting on the plane first, sitting down in first class while I went to the back. And it was just, hey, my wife taking one from the team and sitting in first while I go back. And everyone loved it. And it was, it got like a couple million views, which was just blew my mind. But yeah.
Isn't it so kind of annoying as a creator? We do this all the time where the things that you post on a whim that took you 5 seconds get weird amounts of reach to a point where it's almost annoying, and the thing you spent 2 hours on, one person sees.
Oh, it's ridiculous, because I thought it was a throwaway. Like, it wasn't. I didn't think it was super clever. I didn't think it was terribly funny. I just said, whatever. It was one of those times where you think, I just need to get something out on like Instagram because I haven't posted in a week or whatever. And then other stuff that I actually put some thought into. I'm like, oh, this is valuable. Like, this is people are going to love knowing this fact or whatever.
Right.
No, they don't care.
Yeah. It's painful for the soul. My most viral reel ever was talking about how much I hate taking left turns when I'm driving. It was, I turned my camera on for about 5 seconds while I was driving to say, I absolutely hate this. Does anybody else hate this? I planned my entire route around this. And that was it. And I posted it and put no effort into it. And it's still like every day. And this was months ago. It's still getting likes. And I'm like, why? Yeah. I'm done with the left turn reel. I put out so much value, and that was such nonsense.
I know.
Whatever. Anyways, that's a tangent.
Well, we want to hear more about that Tanzania trip and Zanzibar.
Yes.
Yes,
we do.
So cool.
Okay. Yeah. So that one was, so a few years ago, I mean, Q Suites, as anyone's in the Points of Miles world knows, like, that's kind of one of the top tier type, business class products that you want to take, right? I'd never flown business class internationally. I did it twice, like 2 or 3 times domestically, which is, of course, great, but nothing like you see on Instagram.
The long haul, lay flat seats. Yeah.
All the good stuff that's so amazing, right? So I accumulated a bunch of American miles because that was my plan. I wanted to fly Q Suites. That was a goal of mine. So when I had the points, and I told my wife, I just want to go wherever we go. I want to go somewhere as far away as we can go. Like, I don't want to do Europe. Like, I know it sounds super first world problem, but like, I don't want to go to Europe. Like, I want to keep going as far as we can go. So I wanted to go to South Africa.
Somewhere exotic and fun.
Yeah. just far. I just wanted to be on the plane as long as possible. And so that was the plan. And so my wife has flight anxiety. She doesn't enjoy it at all. And so she goes, I don't want to go very far. She's like, she's trying to talk me down from Africa and doing something else. And I said, well, Qatar doesn't fly anywhere close. So anywhere you go has got to be far. And I said, as long as we're going 15 hours to Doha, well, then what's an extra, 5 or 6 somewhere else? So she reluctantly agreed. And I just thought Africa would be a cool place. A safari would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So we settled in Tanzania because I thought it'd be great to go to Zanzibar for a few days to, hang out at the beach, something a little more her speed. And then we could do I think it was 4 days, a 4-day safari in Tanzania. And so we did that. And she did not freak out one time. She loved.
That's amazing.
She's like, well, and to my detriment now, it's any time we go internationally, it's got to be business class.
For the flight anxiety, I need it, honey, for the flight anxiety.
But that is a real thing.
Yeah,
and believe me, she has it. It's just
my fiance does as well. It's bad.
But when you're on bigger planes, it's not as bumpy. But also, when you're laying down, you're relaxed, you're comfortable. It's your mind's on other things than the little bumps that might be in the air. So anyway, we flew to Africa. It was absolutely incredible. The safari was amazing. We just paid cash for that one, for the safari piece of it. And we went to the Serengeti and a couple other national parks, and it was everything you would hope and expect it to be. So
wow. That's amazing.
We looked up. You stayed, when you guys were in Zanzibar, it seemed like you stayed at the Park Hyatt, which was a steal.
Oh, yeah, it's super cheap. I think at the time it was a category 5, which was, don't quote me on these numbers, but like 20,000 or fewer points. And
it's
I think
21 right now.
Was it 21? Okay.
Yeah.
So I think it was like 18. It was super cheap, compared, for a Park Hyatt where it's normally 30 to 40,000.
Yes.
It was, so it was amazing. It's right on the water. I mean, the only bad thing was that the beach wasn't swimmable, which big deal. But we went to other places and swam at the beach and did some other snorkeling things. But it was a great place to go hang out for a few days and then to go over and then go on that safari. I mean, it was absolutely incredible.
Do you remember how much each business class redemption was for that?
If I remember right, it was somewhere in the neighborhood of $8,000 to $10,000 a person for the round trip.
Okay, so that one was not on points.
Sorry, yeah. So I thought you were asking what the cash price was. So that's
gotcha.
No, I did not spend.
I do want to know the cash price. Yeah. I also want to know the points.
So that one was, so we booked with using American Miles and booked those on Qatar through American. So it was 75,000 points per person each way. So 150 round trip.
That sounds amazing.
And I think the taxes were $300 total. I mean, ballpark it was a couple $100, but not super outrageous like some, have.
Yeah.
How did you accumulate that many American Miles? Because we've been learning lately that there's a lot of rules with those co-branded Citi cards, and that it's a little harder than I thought to accumulate American points credit card wise. So did you shopping portal or how did you do that?
But the majority of it was I kind of planned. I mean, this is even more further in advance than I would typically plan a trip. I wanted to get the miles. Because obviously that was the goal. So that's what that was the plan, the path. So I was kind of thinking about it like 2 years in advance and just kind of setting that up. So it was getting like the Barclays card. And then I can't remember which ones, but it was, I think one of each, a Barclays and a Citi card, one of each for both my wife and I. So it would take time. And I wanted to have the points ready to go because you got to book those far in advance. There's not a ton of availability. So it was just kind of having that ready to go. We actually booked the flight we were going to go in May and then something came up. So we had to change it. So luckily we found stuff in September and ended up going a few months later.
So that trip was just you and your wife. Is that correct? A couple's trip.
Oh yeah. No, I'm not taking, kids don't deserve that kind of stuff. No. I mean, I'd love to take them there. Yeah, but I wasn't going to, no. This is
no Q Suites for you. You guys get your own cards and do that on your own time someday.
100%. And then, like I said, this was the first time we'd ever flown business. So to me, it was like, I want to do this. This is a me trip. and they can figure it out later. Yeah,
that makes sense.
And it looks like they've gone plenty of places since then and had quite the experience.
Zero sympathy for them. Yep, no, I tell them all the time that if I ever went somewhere without them, I'm not going to feel the least bit guilty.
You should not. I love
Let's get into it, though.
Yeah, we want to know.
Flying all 7 of you guys, business class to Europe. Where exactly did you guys go and which airline?
So we flew into Munich, and then we flew home from Paris with a stop. Well, we actually went up to Amsterdam, took a flight down to Paris because you could do a stopover. They just started that. And then we went home spent a couple days in Paris and then went home from there. So we flew KLM to Munich and then home on Air France.
Okay. And what was the price point for that? What were the points?
So that one was, okay, so now keep in mind, this is something I've kind of wanted to do for a while. Like as you do more, right? You always chase the next thing, right? It's just kind of human nature, right? So that was kind of me. That was one thing I wanted to do for my kids. I don't want to say for them. It was for me. Like, I don't really care about them. This is something I just wanted to do because I thought it would be a lot of fun. So I've been saving up my points, and these were my Amex points for a long time. I mean, it was probably a couple years worth of saving, getting bonuses, retention bonuses, pulling Capital One. I used a couple 100,000 Capital One points. I mean, it was a lot. It's not something that just I woke up yesterday and said, oh, this would be fun, I'm going to do it. So it was kind of in the back of my mind, and because I use a ton of Chase points for a lot of the trips that we normally take. And so my Amex points and Capital One were kind of just and I had some Citi too at the time. So they were just kind of accumulating for a while. So anyway, so I just let them build up. And then we talked about going to Europe again. We took the kids once before, I was into points. What was it, 2016? And so we took them then. It was the best vacation we'd ever taken. My youngest was 2. My oldest was 12 at the time. And it was just a ton of fun. And so I always wanted to go back, and there's just other places I wanted to see. So we talked about Munich, and I kind of in my mind had formulated a rough itinerary. But it was just one day I was, periodically I putz around and just try and find what flights are available. And we were talking about Europe again, and I just happened to find flights from LA to Munich, and then coincidentally back from Paris, or maybe I think it was Amsterdam, connecting through Paris. And for the exact dates, it was during spring break of last year of 23. Worked perfectly. I think the kids had to miss one day of school. So it just was unreal. Like, we left on a Friday, got home on a Monday, and the business class seats were open. And that's one nice thing with KLM, Air France, like the Flying Blue program, is it's not uncommon to find more than 1 or 2 seats available for business class or even for economy. So that's great for families, which was nice. But it was the rate, obviously, that made it a lot more doable. It was about, I know one way was 50,000 points a person. The way back might have been like 53. All in all, it was about 800,000 points that I used.
Wow. But still, for that many people, that's incredible.
Agreed. Right. And so the total amount was, cash price was probably in the neighborhood of 50 grand. Again, would never even conceive of dropping even 10% of that. Right. So it was just unbelievable. Now the taxes though, with those airlines are a little bit higher. It was, I think, if I remember right, about $500 a person round trip, which was a lot. And I know a lot of people would say, well, you could find a good cash fare for $500 in the economy. And yes, 100% totally agree with you. But it wasn't so much trying to, typically I'm the kind of guy who says, look, I want to do it for the least amount of points possible to stretch that out, because with 7 people to do another trip, it's just going to take a lot. But this was kind of the one time that we've splurged.
It was a goal.
Right. And that's what it was. And to me, about 3,500 or 4,000, whatever it was in taxes, is a lot. But it was to do something that we never done before.
Really special, really unique.
But it was still just something that was what we always wanted to do. And the cool part about it is we didn't tell them that we were flying business. We gave them the present at Christmas time, said, hey, we're going to Europe for spring break. Yay. And then we showed up at the airport, and of course they're all lamenting about how they're going to have to, be cramped for 10 hours all the way to Europe and all that. And then their Oh, there is a reel. I did, yeah.
I'm gonna have to find it.
Just where they thought we were turning right and we turned left, and then they just got super excited. And if you look at in my highlight bubble, it's the longer version of the video where
okay.
But yeah, it was just we walk on. I'm walking first. They are starting to meander towards the economy bridge. We go the other way, and then they
the best moments in life as a parent, I think. Yeah. I love surprise. The Points and Miles game already has allowed me to surprise my 12-year-old several times with trips, and there's like no better feeling. Someday we'll do that business class surprise. She doesn't deserve to fly business class.
No, they absolutely don't. No,
but I want to do it.
Yeah, you do, and that's the thing. Like, and if you can, and you're, if that's your goal, like by all means do it. And if not, if you want to do something else with the points, and that's the beauty of the whole program, right? It's do whatever it is that you want that makes you happy.
Absolutely.
Because points allow you to do things you would have never thought possible, whether it's, on one end of the spectrum or the other. So whatever that is, do it.
Yes, that's what we preach here. The redemption that's right for you. I'm very curious what tools you use to find the award availability. Are you using a search engine? Or are you just going through an airline's calendar?
So I think if I remember right on this one, I just was searching on Air France just because in the past year, it really was, call it a unicorn finding. Like I said, I was looking at spring break, just kind of checking a couple of things. And it just happened to be there. And I'm like freaking out, trying to pull the trigger, is this what, should I do it? Should I because you don't see it. And for that price of like 50 something or 57,000, whatever it was around 50,000 points, you just don't see, because usually it's 100,000 or 200,000 or something crazy.
Yeah. And for 7 seats.
For 7 seats on the days we needed to go, during spring break. Like, it was just like, I just had to do it. I even told my wife, I was like, we should do economy on the way back. Like, I don't want to do, I don't want to do it all. Like it seems over the top. And she's like, well, you got to do it on the way, the business on the way home, not on the way there. And I'm like, well, no, I'd rather have it on the way there. So we argued about which way is better if you only could do one. I still agree with me that I'd rather sleep on the overnight red eye than have it on the way back. But she's like, you can't go business there. And you can't go business there and then economy on the way home. And that's just such a letdown.
Mary Ellen and I had this debate because we're on opposite sides of it. I feel like on the way home, if I have to go back to economy after having experienced business, I'll lose it. Like, I don't think I can do it. It
definitely ruins you. Yeah, for sure.
I'm the other way. I am team, especially going to Europe. It depends on where you're going. But if you're going to Europe, you're often leaving at night. You're arriving in the morning-ish, and then you have to spend all day. I cannot sleep on a plane. And so, to me, if I'm going to splurge and do business, I want to do it on the way there so that maybe I can actually get a good night's sleep and then start my trip, somewhat rested and ready to go.
Fair. Yeah. I hear you.
There was no wrong answer, and she won, so we did it both ways, and there we go, right?
Amazing. You mentioned the stopover, and this is something that I learned about recently. Ben's Big Deal did a live about it, one of his master classes, where he had an expert on talking about the KLM stopover program, and I don't think a lot of people know that this exists, and it's fascinating. So maybe you could give a little bit of a rundown on their stopover program.
We cannot wait for you to hear the rest of today's episode. But before we dive back in, we want to invite you to connect with us on Instagram. If you're enjoying the insights and travel tips we share here on the podcast, here's how you can stay even more connected with us.
First of all, follow us on our personal Instagram accounts for a glimpse into our daily lives and additional travel adventures. You can find Mary Ellen over at Family Travel for the Win with the number 4, and you can find me, Joe, at Points to Wonderland. Give us a follow and reach out to say hello and let us know if you found us from the podcast.
And of course, for all things podcast related, head over to our dedicated Instagram page at Wonderland on Points Podcast to stay updated on upcoming episodes, behind the scenes moments, and maybe even some exclusive content. Plus, if you're a visual learner, check out our YouTube channel with the same name. We plan on launching full video episodes in the near future, and we would love for you all to join us over there.
Your support on these platforms means the absolute world to us, and it's a fantastic way to be part of the growing Wonderland on Points community. So grab your phone, hit that follow button, and let's learn how to travel on points together. And now, back to the show.
when I was talking to my wife about this, she wanted to do Disneyland Paris.
Mm-hmm.
And it was on her birthday, and so I couldn't say no, because usually I'm like, oh, hard no. I'm not going all the way to Europe to go to Disneyland. Like, that to me seems like a waste of time. But I can't say no when it's the birthday.
When it's her birthday.
And so when I was talking to Air France, they said, well, you can fly, you can do a stopover in Paris for a couple of days and then continue on your way home. And I was like, oh, well, that would be perfect. So I'm not sure what exactly the rules are as far as like how many days you can stop over, things like that. But they basically let you get off the plane, spend a couple of days in, I guess it's Paris or Amsterdam, depending on the airline, spend a couple of days there, and then you can continue on for the same amount of miles. The one thing I did notice is that they did charge more, and there was more taxes that were added to because you got to pay your departure taxes from, in this case, Amsterdam to Paris, and then again from Paris. So it's not like it's just a connecting flight. Well, at least it was for us. It was an extra, I think if I remember right, around $100 a person. That's what added to the total amount of taxes, which is great because you got a flight. I just wouldn't have done it from Amsterdam down to Paris, because Amsterdam's such the city's so compact. The airport's right next to the main train station. You can just hop on the train, because we did this years ago. My wife and I took the train down to Paris, and you book it far enough in advance. It's probably like $80-$90. Well, it was back then. And you don't have to deal with airport security getting to and from, because Paris airport, it's
is
not
that the one you guys did, a sleeper car, all of you? I saw the reel of you guys in a sleeper car on a train.
Yeah. So we did that one with the kids on our first trip. That was from Paris to Venice, which is that they've discontinued that service. So that one's unfortunately no longer available. But we also did it again from Munich up to Amsterdam. That's how we got up that way on that trip. So
that's very cool.
Yeah.
I love train travel. Okay. Great. Well, I wanted to take a little. You have your train shirt on?
I have my train shirt on.
Trains
I like
amazing.
trains. Real quick before we move on, I have been looking at Air France a little bit lately too, and my understanding with the stopover program is that it has to be at least 24 hours, and I think it can be up to 10 days. And of course, everybody looked that up, but more than 24 hours, but you can have up to 10 days. So you could stay somewhere for a whole week and then continue your journey on, which is pretty cool.
It's amazing. And it really takes the stress out of a connection. If you are already going to stop somewhere and connect, and it's a place that you're interested in seeing, all of the stress is gone from trying to plan your connection. You have to book them by calling, though, which is something that people are not aware of, I think. So you do have to speak to somebody. You book your original flight. You earmark your original flight, the one you have your eyeballs on. You write down all the details. You call an agent, and then they'll get it set up for you with a stopover and help you find the next leg.
The other nice thing with the Flying Blue program is that they can put the reservations on hold for, I think it was, if I remember right, 48 hours, maybe 72. And that's kind of what helped me. Like I just threw everything on hold. And that's when me and my wife were going back and forth. Should we do this? Should we not? At least it locked in that we got the 7 seats and, for the 50 some odd thousand.
Yeah,
that takes away a lot of the stress, I would think, when you're booking business class tickets.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So it was nice to just have that on hold and you're good for a little bit to give you a chance to breathe and really think about it. So
that's awesome. Talk to us about hotels on this trip, because you have a huge family and we know how Europe is with the hotels and the occupancy rules. Did you find good hotels on points? Did you find anywhere that you guys were allowed to stay all in one room? What did you guys do?
So we had to split up into 3 rooms.
3?
Europe's terrible.
Yeah.
It was, it's usually 2 to 3 max occupancy. And normally with kids and stuff in the US, I'll sneak an extra one in. Someone can sleep on the floor, especially when they're younger, all that kind of stuff. In Europe or anywhere internationally, don't recommend it because they check passports and all that kind of stuff. And the last thing you want to do is to show up and they say, no, sorry, we have, these strict rules. You got to get another room, pay, an exorbitant rate, or it's sold out, or, whatever that problem is. So I wouldn't recommend that. But we did stay. So it was always 2 or 3 rooms, and my kids were older, so it was okay for them to be in a different room, than us. Not a big deal. But we did find some we did all on points. And so when we stayed in Munich, I had some old IHG points. So there's a Holiday Inn Express that was, like 2 train stops from downtown. So it's in a pretty good location. And it was super cheap. It was probably, I'd have to check my stories, but in the neighborhood of 15 to 17,000 points a night per room. Or the cash rate was, I think, $100, $150, $120. I mean, I hadn't used the points. I had them for a couple of years, so I went just to
Might as
use
well.
them. But the cash rate wasn't bad at all. And they had an amazing breakfast for everybody. I mean, they had this like meat and cheese spread and croissants and pancakes. I mean, it was an amazing spread for like $120, right? So from a cash rate, that one was actually really good. We did the night train for one of the nights. That took care of that one. And then in Paris and Amsterdam, we stayed at, the Hyatt Regency in Amsterdam. And then in Paris, it was the Hotel Madeleine, the Hyatt Madeleine. Which was, it was only one. A lot of people stay at and I'm going to butcher because I don't speak French, Étoile or
Étoile. Yeah,
that one. And it's a little further out of the city. There was no award availability when we were there. This was a little bit more. I think it was 20,000 points a night, which I know is a lot. And for everyone, I always like to throw the caveat. I've been doing this, for years, and it just snowballs, right? It's hard to build up that capital points and all that kind of stuff. But once you get that snowball rolling, it makes it a little bit easier to do some of these things. Anyway, so we stayed there. Fantastic. But what I've noticed, so when we went to Europe the first time, there was other hotels that we stayed at because it's way before points, and I wasn't going to spend $500 a night on a hotel. They have some apartment hotels that we actually could fit 4 people in each room, which was nice. So we only needed 2 rooms the first time we went at most of the hotels. And they're pretty basic, and there's no real name brand ones that, I found. It wasn't like, the Marriott apartment hotels, right? So that part's a little, I just did a little bit of research, mainly on the location, found some of the nicer hotels, then looked for something in that vicinity, and then just looked at the Google reviews to see if there was, how good it was. And they were basic. I mean, they had, I don't believe they had housekeeping, which is, who cares? But the places were clean, the beds were nice, and it was a place that we only needed 2 rooms, close to all the stuff, and and it worked. That actually worked out well. So that's one of the things that I would recommend if you don't have a ton of points and you're paying cash, have a big family. Those apartment style hotels are great because then again the front desk is open 24/7. It's it's like a hotel, just not a lot of the amenities that you would typically find. Which again, fine by me. I when we travel, I'm usually out from sun up to sundown, so I don't care.
Shout out to all the people who leave hotel reviews, by the way. They are so helpful. And also I get such decision paralysis though when I am reading hotel reviews. And usually it's the people who had a horrible experience though that leave a review and you're like, oh my gosh, it could be a great hotel. And the one review will make me be like, oh no, we can't stay there. We can't stay there. They're a double-edged sword, those reviews, hotel reviews.
I look at it as simply, if the vast majority, someone's always going to be unhappy and lash out, fine. But if it's, 4.5 stars, great. That's good enough for me. It can't be awful. And that's all I'm trying to avoid is awful.
Yep. Just the basics. That's all we need.
One of the tips that you share online about your trip to Europe, but it kind of holds true around the world, has to do with when you pay with a credit card, you have to choose local currency or US dollar. And that in the moment of traveling, if you don't go in with a game plan, can be like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. Maybe you just pick. But tell us a little bit about that so listeners who are traveling this summer or making plans can be ready ahead of time and not freak out in that moment and make sure they do the right thing.
Yep. So typically, what you want to always have when you travel abroad is a credit card that doesn't charge those, foreign transaction fees, because they add up, right? 3% of everything you buy, whether it's a hotel stay, food, whatever, it starts to add up. Mm-hmm. So the one thing that they've done over, it's probably been several years, but when you pay with a credit card, they'll say, oh, if you don't, it's for those people who don't have one of those cards that have no transaction fees. They'll say, oh, you can pay in US dollars if you want, and then that avoids the fee. Which is true, but the conversion rate of what that US dollar amount is worse than the 3% that you'd pay your bank if you just use your normal credit card. Mm-hmm. So they give you the option. They say, hey, do you want to pay in US dollars or do you want to pay in euros? Always pay, even if you don't have a card that does charge foreign transaction fees, always pay in the local currency, because I will say 99 times out of 100, you will find that it's cheaper to do it that way. And then obviously, if you have the card that avoids the fees, then it's even better. But yeah, always pay in the local currency.
What about with ATMs, getting money out of the ATM?
So I believe that's the same. I used to in the past take a bunch of cash, and then there's other accounts now, and I think like my Wells Fargo account doesn't charge me transaction fees. So if I need to go to the ATM, I don't get charged ATM fees. And the same thing, I just take it out, and whatever the euros or wherever I'm at, give me the local currency, and whatever rate they give me is always better than what I would get, somewhere else. So I would say try to get a bank. It's one of these fintech companies, and why am I blanking? Oh, like SoFi. I think that one has, and I would double check, make sure I'm not mistaken here. But a lot of those, they'll reimburse you for all your foreign ATM fees as well. So even if you just moved over $500, $1,000, whatever your kind of budget is, take that ATM card with you and withdraw money using that one when you get overseas. Those are ways to avoid these fees and get the cash that you need while you're traveling.
That's a great tip.
The one exception that I found was in Mexico recently. So we were traveling with my siblings. We were just down in Playa del Carmen doing a little tour somewhere, and we needed to pay the driver. So we stopped at the ATM to get cash to pay him, and it said, "Here's the exchange rate," or the exchange rate would be $400.22 or whatever. And he said, "No, don't do that. Decline it." And we were like, we never heard of this before, so he declined it. Then it said, "Okay." The next screen was like, "Do you want to?" Then you'll get charged what your local bank will charge you, and it's the same kind of shenanigans that they do with this credit card thing. Is that the rate that the local bank was going to give you is worse than if you just let your Wells Fargo, Bank of America, whoever you bank with, charge you whatever their exchange rate is. But it's just one way. Another way to, I would say if you see that type of thing, always hit, no, cancel. And worst case scenario, kicks out your card, you got to start over. Maybe that one's different. Because we went to Cabo last December and I got money out of the ATM and I totally forgot about it. And I don't even remember if it asked me that question. I was just quickly trying to get some cash to go because we had to leave. And so maybe I got hosed on that transaction. But
oh no.
But I did see it in the Playa del Carmen and Cancun area. So anyway, just something else to be aware of.
Cautionary tales. Yeah. Yes.
And it wasn't it's not like you're going to lose like $100, but for what we were pulling out, it was probably like $20, $25, which, I don't want to give up $25 when I don't have to.
Absolutely. It's good for people to go into this being aware because it's those kinds of things you don't think about. A lot of people don't even know about foreign transaction fees. So it is very good to have all of that on your radar. I think we should switch gears a little bit because we saw an Instagram reel where you were talking about saving money on Allegiant and Spirit. And this is like the total opposite of flying a family of 7 in business class. This is like the other end of the spectrum with those budget airlines. So tell the listeners about your tips there.
Yeah, so Allegiant and Spirit, and even I found that it works on Breeze, I believe Frontier. A lot of the budget carriers, how they do it is, so they typically charge like a nominal fee for the fare. Maybe it's, in one case I saw it was like $9, but then they tack on all these fees and whatever. And the research I did and the reading I came across was that they do this because they don't have to pay taxes on fees or things. They pay taxes, like whether it's like there's like an excise tax, some sort of tax or something for the fare, but not on the extra fees, like your bag fees, something else that they might have to pay. So they circumvent that by charging a small amount for the airfare and add on as many fees as they possibly can.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, so most of them are fine, like, your baggage fees, your seat assignments, and all that kind of stuff that you would pick. But one is, and I forget the name of it, it's something like it's basically like a convenience fee, right? And airline passenger I don't know, right now I think it's $22 each way on Allegiant. Each one's a little bit different. But the one caveat with, if they charge it as a fee, there has to be a way to for the customer to avoid paying it. Otherwise, it doesn't count as a fee. You can't have a mandatory charge. So the way to get around that is you go down to the airport and you purchase the ticket in person from the counter, and then that avoids that $22 each way, so $44 round trip. At least that's for Allegiant. Again, each one's a little bit different, but that's a way to avoid that fee. A lot of cases, if it's just one person, it's probably not worth, or even two, maybe going all the way, depending on how close you live to an airport. And with Allegiant, so I live in Phoenix, fairly close to the Mesa Airport, and they're there all the time. There's a ton of flights. It's like one of their main hubs, but they only sell tickets technically on Sundays from noon to 1 p.m. So that's the only time you're allowed to really go in and buy a ticket.
Oh, weird.
I've made an excuse. Well, they try to make it very difficult
as difficult as possible. Yeah.
And I've seen other airports that it's a lot more accessible. Just Arizona's not. And so
how did you even find that out when the time is that you're allowed to come buy tickets?
So I found that it was what do you call it? You could do it, I think, on a reel or a post somewhere I saw, and I was like, well, I got to check this out because again, times 7 that can save you a lot of money.
Yes.
And so we, so then I was just looking on their website, and they have actually on Allegiant's website the hours of operation of all the different airports and times. However, I've also found that to be unreliable. There's some airports that it's outdated, because I went down for Spirit because we were going to go to New Orleans a few years ago, and I found with the fares.
It's very on brand for the budget airlines that it's
it was terrible.
Inaccurate.
It was seven tickets one way from here to New Orleans for $130. It was outrageous. And
for total?
Yeah, total for all 7 of us, 130. And I think it's in the blog post I wrote about it. Yeah, it was like 134, 138. It was something crazy. But yeah, I went down to the airport one time, and they weren't open. And so then I found out what time they were actually open, and then went back again to buy those tickets.
Oh my gosh.
And even like another time, we took the kids up to the Redwoods, and this was in 21, maybe no, summer of 20. So right after kind of COVID was letting up, all 7 of us round trip to Oakland was $210, I think. And so we went up there.
Insane.
Yeah. It was unreal. And that's why you do it.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. I mean, to be honest, when I am looking at budget carrier prices, I never find that kind of stuff. I'm always like, this is way higher than I feel like it should be. Like Spirit flies out of St. Louis. I feel like there should be some of those like $20 flights. I never find them though. Maybe I'm not looking in the right place.
It's hit and miss. I mean, I think a lot of it's you got to be, or when they first release them, things like that, like the cheap ones go faster. And I don't know. It's just, as long as you think about it, like occasionally, and you just kind of like check it every once in a while, you'll find something. I mean, I mean, I can't speak for St. Louis, but Arizona, you can find some pretty cheap deals.
I'm going to have to start looking. That's going to be a new hobby of mine. Kind of like scrolling my Hyatt app for fun. That's my favorite.
You got to pay baggage fees and things like that, but usually we all try to pack in a backpack. Usually it's like a weekend trip and things like that. So, but even if we had to pay for one bag, fine. It's
Well, that's amazing.
But I wouldn't say it's been any worse of an experience than any other airline I've flown. Like, and there's always people complaining about, or you hear the horror stories of, my flight was canceled. I spent 5 days in North Dakota, and I've never heard of that. I mean, I've heard the rumors, but I've never talked to anyone that's had that happen. And all my flights have generally been on time and fine. So like I kind of lost that fear.
That's awesome.
So back to just kind of general points and miles and credit cards. What are your staple credit cards? Because we encourage people to go through their wallet every year, think about cards that you want to keep, cards that maybe you want to cancel after the initial year. You never want to cancel a card in less than a year. Always wait until that annual fee hits before you go to cancel it. So which cards are staples for you that you absolutely keep in your wallet all times, your favorite cards? And what cards have you canceled after a year?
Yeah. So for me, I'm big on Chase because, I mean, we stay at Hyatt a ton. It's one of the few cards that you can transfer, to Hyatt and stuff. So I load up on Chase cards. So the ones for me, I don't have a Sapphire card yet. Well, I've had them in the past, canceled those. The one card I keep is the Ink Business Preferred because it's very similar to the Sapphire Preferred card.
Yeah.
But the benefits are slightly better, in my opinion. Like it has the cell phone insurance, and then you get some better multipliers on a couple of the purchase categories. So it's slightly better, but it allows, to still transfer all the points to where you need to go. So I keep that one. I'm going to get a Sapphire Reserve again shortly because there's going to be a Chase Lounge in Phoenix.
That's what I heard that.
It's been under construction for a long time. So when they finally announce an opening date, then I'm going to get that. I'm not eligible for the bonus, but I will get that because we fly out of Phoenix so much that that's worth it to me.
Absolutely.
Without that, I'm fine with just the Ink Preferred. That one is great. The other card I have that's a staple for me is the Ink Business Cash Card, because I'm a degenerate and I like to buy
gift cards.
Yeah, so
I love the gift card strategy.
So I mean, you use it for restaurants or other things that they sell the cards for. It's when they have those fee-free Visas and Mastercards. I'll get a handful of those to pay for stuff, utility bills, just all the other doctor bill, just stuff that you would normally only get the 1X on.
I've never tried to use those gift cards on utilities and doctor's bills. They let you do that? It doesn't.
I'm sure it varies. I'm sure there are probably some utilities or something that maybe don't, or they'll charge you a fee. But yeah, I just run it like any other debit card and make a payment of $200. Do that. Doctors. I mean, if it's a larger bill, sometimes I'll be like, "Hey, do you mind? I got a couple of these gift cards." I mean, I just upfront with people. I'm like, "Hey, do you mind?" And they're like, "Nah, I don't care." And just run a couple of those through if it's like a larger hospital copay or something, or braces. Yeah,
braces. Whatever. That's coming up in my house very soon.
Yeah, looking forward to it. It's a little bit of a hassle, but to me, I mean, it's worth it to me to be a little uncomfortable for 30 seconds and say, "Hey, do you mind if I run?" I know they think I'm probably like short on cash or whatever. Like, "Hey, do you mind if I use 5 debit cards to pay these?" And like, fine. Right?
I promise I'm good for it.
Yep. Let's see. The other 2 cards I'd say that I keep, like, I have one of the Freedoms. I've had like a Freedom Flex, like previous iterations of it for 20 years now. It's been a while. So I like that one or the Freedom Unlimited just gives you better, the 1.5 on everything's better than 1. And then the Amex Gold. My wife has that one that we use for groceries because that one gives you the 4X on groceries and dining. And so that's kind of, I'd say the 4. And I also like the Venture X. That's another one I really like for, if you just normal spend 2X on everything, that's another good one to have. So those are kind of my core set of cards.
Yeah. What's on your strategy now for the future? What do you have your eyes on?
So I just booked Thailand for my wife and I.
Ooh.
Yeah. And then the next thing I'm trying to plan is a family trip to Scotland. So
just kill me now. This is all the way up here on my list.
Yeah, that's been top of my wife's list. Apparently I haven't listened to her for terribly long because apparently it's been there for years. I've just been hearing about it or listening to it for the recent past. So that's the next one that we're going to try and do. So for my strategy for the future is I'm trying to get more American Airlines miles because a lot of flights out of Phoenix. There's a lot of decent rates to Europe usually. And then I'm also keeping Flying Blue in the back of my head or Iberia to kind of as options as well. But that's kind of the next one that I'm trying to figure out how to do.
Those sound amazing. Yeah, we really, American seems to have such good redemptions. So I feel like either we're always talking about pivoting a little bit to American, but it's just so much easier to earn Chase points and Amex points, in my opinion.
Oh, they totally are. And I mean, Bilt was a good way. I mean, they used to be the transfer partner of American. That's going away. So if you pay rent and things like that, that's a way to, or it used to be a way to get American miles. Yeah. So it's really just Citi and Barclays that are the ones. And I mean, so we're back to opening up. I just opened the Citi AA business card.
Oh, nice.
A couple weeks ago for $75,000. And I'm going to do that for my wife, I think this week, as soon as I get around to it. So hopefully that can get us one way.
Yeah.
On American. So
yeah, that card is on my radar. The Barclays rejected me for excessive credit applications because I went a little too fast.
Yep. Yeah, I get it. Citi denied both of us last year for the personal card. So
okay, well that makes me feel better. I didn't do anything wrong. I have an amazing credit score, but I just got way too many cards so fast, and they're like, "What are you up to?" They're right. I am up to something. I want to travel for free, all the places.
I've got another question as a parent of teenagers, because I believe a few of your kids are a little bit older. My kids are still younger. I have one about to finish elementary school, but something that I've heard about for the future to set my kids up for success is that you can sometimes add them as an authorized user, and it helps establish a relationship for them with banks so that once they are 18 and want to start their own credit card journey, they're in a better position. Have you done that for any of your kids yet or learned about that?
I've done it for most of my kids. I need to add my two youngest because I've just been lazy. I probably should just do that. Because I actually, each bank varies. I think some have age limits of, like 13, some don't, or it's a lot lower. I'll spare you the details. I used to basically resell sporting event tickets 15 years ago, and I needed different credit cards names with addresses. So when my daughter was 2, I got her put on as an authorized user with Citibank.
Wow.
And that worked. So she's had that one for a long time. And then
2 might be a record.
Yeah. So
that might be a record.
2 or 3, but it was super young. So I did it accidentally. But yeah, it's also it goes on their credit history as your payment for that card specifically will go on and kind of build their credit too. So of course, this only goes for don't screw your kids up and not pay bills and not and mess them up in the future. So if you are, again, with everything responsible and can make sure the payments are done on time and all that, then it is something that I'd say give it a shot. So that way, when they get there, when they're 18 and need to apply for a credit card or a car loan or something, they have a little bit of a history that.
Absolutely. There's nothing crazier than turning 18 and feeling like you're stepping out into the world and then being told you need this thing called a credit score and that you have to somehow earn it, even though nobody wants to give you anything to start earning it. So I know that one of my derogatory marks on my credit score is the length of credit history, because I've only had credit cards for 4 years. I'm in my 30s. So that to me is like that's a mark against me that nobody extended me credit prior to that, because I didn't do the credit card thing. So I tried to actually make her and my daughter an authorized user on when I applied for the Barclays card, because they had a bonus where if you added an authorized user, they would give you another 10,000 points for that sign up bonus. But they have a 13 and up rule, and she's 12. So it does all vary. I guess some banks let you have a 2-year-old as an authorized user, which is hilarious to me.
I can't remember if they even asked her birthday or whatever. I added it, but but I would also say along the lines of that credit history piece, I would also recommend making sure you do it on cards that you plan to keep forever.
Yes.
I mean, it's one thing, obviously, you get a bonus, and that's not going to make a huge difference, in my opinion, especially if they're 13 right now and then 10 years later they get a card. But it's the ones that, no annual fees, just add them to it. Even if they never see the card in their wallet, at least it's on their history, and and you'll keep it for 13, 15, 20 years, right? And then that'll show up as help out at least with that credit history and other factors that go into your credit score.
Absolutely. But you're right to caution people. We tell them not to get into this hobby at all if you can't be paying off your cards in full every month. So please, 100%. For the love of everything, do not make your children authorized users if you're not doing that. Yep. That is a nightmare waiting to happen.
Is there anything in points and miles that if you started all over again, you would do differently, or a mistake that you've made that you'd be willing to share just to help other people avoid that mistake?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to make mistakes, right? And I don't know, I think one of the biggest mistakes is just not getting started sooner. I mean, I told you it took me 3 months to apply for an amazing deal. And I know everyone's got to get comfortable with it. Everyone's got to do their research. I mean, because if we applied this aspect to other parts of our lives where we said, just trust the people on Instagram and do it right away, like that'd be terrible advice, right? So I get all that. So I would say, once you feel comfortable and you think you understand it, don't wait, right? So get started sooner than later. But as far as a specific mistake, I remember back in the day, I got, I think, an American Airlines credit card. I mean, this was probably, the Sapphire was the first time I really dove into it. But I did have an American card. I think it was for the baggage fees or, something way back in the day. And I got a bunch of miles. I didn't really want to pay the annual fee anymore. Left it. And then the points ended up expiring because I wasn't keeping track of it.
No.
And they went bye-bye. And there's probably 60, 70,000. Luckily, back then it was a lot cheaper to get them reinstated.
Okay.
But so I did get them back, but it wasn't free. So I don't forget what the fee was. Maybe it was $50 or $100, something. But I did have to pay to get those back. So I would say, stay organized, however that looks for you, and gradually kind of layer on different things. Like start with one card, then maybe it's two, then maybe it's something else that is in this, another wrinkle in the hobby, and just, but only do it as much as you feel comfortable and just keep track, whether it's through spreadsheets. There's apps that help you track cards, annual fees, things like that. Like one, I'm super archaic, but it works for me, is I have all my statements mailed to me because I don't like to have, I just don't like them auto paid. I mean,
I don't auto pay either.
It's just my personality. Some people, you need it. I wholeheartedly, like my son, I would say auto pay everything, dude. You do not want to rely on your memory or your, just get it done. But for me, it's for twofold. One, it's to check. It's my gut check. My 30 seconds, I'll get my credit card in the mail, scan through, and say, are these my charges? Is there something else funky going on because I have more cards than the average person, and I just want to make sure nothing got stolen and is being used for Netflix in China or something. I don't know. So that's part of it. The other part is that's how I track the annual fees. Is a lot of my cards have annual fees. If I'm just putting it on auto pay and I'm not paying attention and I don't want to keep it, then maybe I'll be 3 months past the date that it renewed and I wasn't planning to keep the card. So again, it's just my easy way of getting my statements and scanning for stuff like that. So
that's actually a really great idea. Yes, I just don't put things on auto pay because I'm always afraid I will have spent too much and then just be like shocked when I just pay every single week. I just go in at like every Friday and just wipe everything out because that's the only way. But
there's nothing great about getting that credit card at the end of the month and you've got, crazy purchase on you, like freak out. Yeah. Been there.
It's better for me as the impulsive person that I am to just do little bite-sized chunks at a time. It feels a little bit better. But okay, that is a really interesting tip and not one that we've ever heard before. So that's a first on the podcast, is the paper statements. But my
old man Dilgarian dropping some wisdom on you.
I love it. My mom would love it too, because she's always like, you got your filing cabinet? You got your new card stuff in the mail? Did you put it straight in your filing cabinet? And I'm like, yeah.
Yes,
it's in my.
Sure did.
I use my filing cabinet.
Filing cabinet.
I have one. Do I use it? Do I use it? No, I do not. Is all the paper just piled somewhere in a box? Probably. Yes, because I take that card out and then I toss all of the things that come with it off to the side. It's a really good habit. Very responsible. Okay. Well, as we're wrapping up here, we like to ask you to tell everybody not only where they can find you and follow what you're doing, but also to give us a shout out of another creator that you enjoy following that you feel that all our listeners would benefit from.
So you can find me on Instagram. The handle's at TravelPointsRob. That's really, well, and I have a website, easytravelpoints.com, where I've posted, like this tutorial on Spirit and Allegiant and a handful of other things, but that's kind of a lot of just the basic stuff that I'll point people to that's a little more in depth. But mostly it's all on Instagram. And then as far as a person I would give a shout out to, Beth from V Family Travels. She's a buddy of mine. She has a bigger family like me. She's got a daughter who also has some special needs. So if you need that kind of information for traveling, they've done a lot with them or with their kids, and and also having to have those accommodations, I think it's great to see how they've been able to travel with all of their kids and doing that. So she's fantastic. Amazing. And we just filmed the course that we launched last week. So
that's awesome. Can you spell her? I don't think I heard what her handle is.
Yeah, it's V like Victor. Family Travels.
Okay.
Yep.
That's amazing. That's a new one for us. So we're going to have to go look her up. And we just did an episode all about, traveling with disabilities and special needs and that kind of stuff. So we're pretty passionate about that over here. So that'll be really fun to follow her. We'll link her up. We'll link all of your stuff up, your website and your Instagram. And we appreciate you being here to share your Game of Thrones wisdom with the world. What did you call yourself? Old man?
Old man
like-
Bulgarian.
I feel like that's what we're going to title the episode. I'm just kidding. I wouldn't do that. That's amazing. But really, I feel like we've learned a lot, and your Instagram is such a fascinating place. And I know everybody's going to want to go keep up with everything you guys are doing, especially with these big trips you've got coming up.
Yeah, this should be fun. I mean, they're fun in my head. Hopefully the reality's the same.
It'll be great. I'm sure of it. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
If you enjoyed this show today, please consider writing us a review or clicking 5 stars wherever you listen to your podcasts. And please subscribe and follow along so that you never miss an episode.
You can follow the podcast on Instagram or YouTube at Wonderland on Points Podcast. You can find me on Instagram at Family Travel for the Win with the number 4.
And you can find me on Instagram at Points to Wonderland.
If you're thinking about getting a new Travel Rewards credit card, consider using the links in our show notes. Using our links helps to support us and keep our podcast going, so we can provide you with all the latest tips and tricks when it comes to traveling on points.
And if you aren't sure which card is right for you, shoot us an email at wonderlandonpoints@gmail.com, and we would be happy to walk you through a free card consultation. That's also a great place to send us all of your comments and questions. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you here next time.